2. Live like a blonde person, a fake blonde person who dyes their hair and is trying to bring Christmas to the masses. Hello, welcome to the Ryan Stick Show. We're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to be talking all about Christmas with a special host of Christmas 365, Matt Kelly. It's going to be a good time. You know, it's even a better time. I have not one, but 2 intros. Check this out. Look at the short-haired
Ryan Stick Show.
And then there is outdated long-haired me, which we're going to have to update at some point. And this is the start of the show.
Ryan Stick Show. It's the Ryan Stick Show. Ryan Stick Show. It's the Ryan Stick Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's light up Christmas like a fucking tree. Here we are on the Ryan Stick Show having some fucking fun. We are a few days before Christmas time, and I'd like to bring in one of the best podcasters on the goddamn planet. He is the host of so many podcasts on the Geekscape Network. Let's bring in Matt Kelly. How you doing, dude?
Hey, you know what's fun is watching that intro and being like, I've met both versions of that Ryan on this podcast.
It's like various versions of the Winter Soldier. It's actually interesting.
Yeah.
But also it's like looking at Earth 2 me at the same time as Earth 1.
I was
but
gonna
it's
ask if one could be Jekyll and one could be Hyde, which one would you assign to which role?
well, the long-haired me screams, "Don't touch me, there's germs." So I think Dr. Jekyll's kind of the blonde guy because he's kind of like, "Hey, let's all hug, whatever."
Yeah, he looks approachable.
Yeah. Dude, it is so great to see you, Matt. We had this great episode with you and Brian from High School Slumber Party, which was a very recent guest on the You Mean What TV, in which we blew up your podcast as well, all through the hour. And we talked all about the Muppets, and now it's a big 30th anniversary of the Muppet Christmas Carol. And I saw this beautiful broadcast. What was the show you were just on that I was like fanboying on and commenting constantly? What was it?
I feel terrible because I'm going to destroy this name because it's the host's last name.
Yeah.
I want to say it's the Bladtcast.
Yeah.
BLADT cast.
Yeah. There you go.
Christian Blatt, who hosts a different show for Geekscape called Geekscape Book Club. But he's been doing the Bladtcast forever. It's very similar to your show, actually. It's a chat show about whatever topic he cares about. Sometimes he's got a guest, sometimes he's got a friend, sometimes it's just him. So he's been doing that for, I think they're up to like 600 or 700 episodes now.
That's a lot of 100 episodes.
Yeah, but so the way that happened, because Christian and I don't talk that much. He was on an episode of Weird Algorithm to promote, he did Nature Trail to Hell. And he had hit up my friend Katie to do this Muppets Christmas Carol thing, and she was like, I mean, if we're talking Muppets, we have to call Matt Kelly in. Like, we have to call in the
Isn't that nice that you're the Muppet guy?
So there are like a handful of things that I'm known for now, and it's like Muppets. Apparently Phantom of the Paradise. I've been asked to be on multiple podcasts for my love of Phantom of the Paradise. And then then it's like the million things that I already have podcasts on. It's like, oh, you're going to talk about one-hit wonders? You should hit up Matt Kelly. Oh, you're going to talk about Weird Al Yankovic? Hit up Matt Kelly.
I feel honored in the sense that sometimes whenever something geeky comes out, people send it to me. And that's an honor too. But that's really cool that it's so specific that you're the Muppet and Christmas guy.
But also
and Phantom of the Paradise, apparently. That's really fucking cool. And the horror movie guy. Matt, you're so many guys to so many people. So that's amazing.
My friend Ashley said this recently on a podcast that I produce. And she said, I figured out a way to monetize everything that I love. And I was like, that is pretty much exactly what I'm doing. She's like, I just took all my interests and I found a way to monetize them through podcasting or writing or whatever. So yeah, it feels ridiculous because I used to make fun of how many different podcasts the three McElroy brothers have across the board. And now I think I have more than all three brothers combined at this point, which is chaos. And I have a new one that's coming out on Sunday.
Really? What's the new one? What's the new one? Tell me about the new one.
The new one is called White People Problems, an OC podcast.
I knew you were going to start one of those. Yeah.
I've never watched the OC. My friend
Mhm.
Joe is a diehard OC fan. We
Yeah.
recorded the first 6 episodes. We already had a guest on one of our first 6 episodes, which was so crazy to me that we got this guest who's not even like famous by any stretch of the imagination, but she's a writer and podcaster that I have been a fan of
Yeah.
forever. And on a bunch of different podcasts and articles, she mentioned her undying love of the OC. So it's like, I'm just going to write and see if she wants to be on this OC podcast. Hello, stranger. I'm a white male from the middle of nowhere. Would you like to be on my podcast? And she was like, absolutely. I love the OC. And I was like, all right, just let me know what episode you want to talk about. And she picked like the episode we were about to record that day. And I was like, hey, if you're free in the next like hour or two, we're legitimately about to record this episode. She's like, I'm going to watch it right now and take notes. So, like it came together so quickly. But yeah, that is, I can't even say who that is. It's, if you're a fan of Friends and the Friends podcast, Best of Friends, it's Aaron Mallory Long, who used to write for Hello Giggles and a bunch of other geeky websites in the before pandemic times. But yeah, she was just, I don't know if you've ever felt this way, Ryan, but like she really did the thing that I think guests can do to a podcast, which is they really unlock what the show's potential is.
Of course.
To you. You know what I mean? So like, not to say that I don't think the first 3 episodes of the OC podcast are good. They are. Like they're funny. Like I'm editing them right now and I have like a big dumb smile on my face as I'm editing these. But when you have a guest who like comes on the show and they add this different energy, you're like, that's what I want. That's the energy. We're seeing it right now with the Weird Algorithm podcast, where it's like,
explain what the Weird Algorithm podcast is to everybody who hasn't heard of this, because frankly, it's a fucking show that I never fucking miss. But you know, it's in my DNA, dude. My first favorite bands in the world were Beach Boys and Weird Al. Yes. Those are the 2 tapes that I had when I was like 9 years old. So explain to everybody what Weird Algorithm is, because it's a massive hit. Everyone's loving it, but please tell the world.
Dude, I could not have guessed on this one. But yeah, Weird Algorithm. It's myself and my friend Matt from the band Wheatus, and we are working our way through Weird Al's everything. In as close to order of release as possible. So right now we're about 48 hours from our episode on The Complete Owl coming out, which was a like VHS tape that was released to promote the Dare to Be Stupid album. And then that will be the end of our Dare to Be Stupid coverage, and we will start Polka Party. The way that this show is recorded,
the interesting period of Al's time where things went down for a little bit.
Down in a big way, probably as low as they ever got for him.
Ever got, yeah.
And we record this show in such a strange way, because with Matt's tour schedule and my everything schedule, the logical way for us to do this is that we will just pick 2 days and we will try to record an entire album's worth of episodes in those 2 days, and then like take a 2-month break from talking to each other on mic, and then try to get back into it. So like the last week of December, we will begin releasing the episodes for Polka Party that we record it in October. And then by mid-January, we will start recording the episodes for Even Worse that will come out in like April and May. Like it's like these weird little blocks, but word is spreading enough with Weird Algorithm, which is kind of cool, that like I'm gonna send something in the private chat because I don't want to say this publicly yet. But we have booked a guest that has me like head over heels excited as a comedy podcast and comedian fan. Yeah. So stay tuned. You'll have to subscribe to figure this one out. But I mean, when we basically just sat down and we wrote down who are comedians that we love who are known Weird Al fans, and then I pay for IMDb Pro. So I just went through IMDb Pro, searched every one of these comedians, and hit up their publicists with the pitch of, we do a podcast about Weird Al. We'd love to have your client on the show to talk about their favorite Weird Al song. And when this person's publicist got back, and was
Matt,
just like,
I gotta be honest with you for a second. I knew the name, and I knew, like, when I read the name, I'm like, oh, that's important. But then I double Googled it,
yeah,
and I really realized that I knew who this person is, and I'm an extreme fucking fan of all their work.
yes.
The fact you have them on your podcast, Matt, is fucking insane. Okay, so everybody out there right now, subscribe to not only Christmas 365 and Horror Movie Nights, and of course One Hit Thunder. Jeez, Matt, you have so many fucking shows.
There's
Mm.
I
But
think the count is
you
funny.
don't phone in any of them. That's the amazing thing. You're like this figurehead of a network, but at the same time, it's truly an amazing thing. You're like who the fuck was the producer of Happy Days again that produced Pretty Woman?
Oh God, yeah.
He made all these shows, but none of the shows kind of suffered based on the fact that he could do so many things. But that's how I feel about what you do with the Geekscape Network, because really all the shows are handled with such love, and there's not the shitty show amongst them. And that
No.
must be, a labor of love, of course, because you put so much of yourself into all these podcasts.
It's a lot of that, and it's also a lot of trusting other people. You know what I mean? Like, I produce a lot of the shows on Geekscape.
Of course.
But they're the shows that I created. You know what I mean? Like, I've never rolled in and said, I like your show, I want to produce it.
Gotcha.
But I will see someone show, like, a prime example, one that I think every podcast I've ever been on, I've sung the praises of, this show 91 Donkey Lane. I found their show because I was a fan of a previous show by one of the hosts, and I was like, I want this on my network. I think that this is the exact type of content I want to be putting out there. And I just hit them up and I'm like, look, all I can do is put you on the website and hope that it gets more people to notice you. I don't want to tell you how to do your thing. You're doing it great. Just do it great for Geekscape. And so they are. So, like, 91 Donkey Lane is a fully improvised fantasy comedy podcast about two dudes who live in a magical apartment, and it's a bunch of people from the Chicago and Boston improv scenes playing various magical creatures that wander in and out of their apartment on any given episode. And then on a similar hand, another show that I did the same thing with was Undiscovered Scripts, which was a bunch of voice actors.
Yeah, I like that one a lot, actually.
That they dig up these scripts that will never ever get made for one reason or another, and they get a bunch of voice actors, and they get a bunch of people who are professional audio editors in LA. It's all LA based, and they do these giant, elaborate, like, table reads and radio dramas based around these scripts. And again, I was like, I think that your show is great, and I really want it on this network, and I don't want to tell you how to do anything. Just do it.
And that's the Geeps. And I just added 2 more pages to this chat right now, because frankly, Matt, the main reason that we're talking today, hey, what's going on, is that I just want more people to know about the amazing things you do. So this is all on the Geekscape Network, and you just had a 24-hour holiday charitable charitable fundraiser. So
Yes.
tell everybody right now, pretty much, if they didn't see it, I mean, you're very generous. People can watch a lot of the content that you produce for this charitable reason. But where can people actually just donate if they have a few extra bucks right now and they're just kind of like, in the name of Geekscape, how can I just give something back?
The easiest way to do it is to go to Geekscape TV on YouTube. And we've uploaded a bunch of videos, and every one of those videos has a link to donate to the Big Brothers Big Sisters of coastal and northern New Jersey. It's a branch of the Big Brothers Big Sisters that my friend from high school runs, and we were shooting the shit one day, and she was talking. I asked her, like, what's the hardest thing running like a Big Brothers organization? She said, just having the finances to match people. Like, for 1 year of a big being matched with a little, it costs almost $2,000 between, like, background checks and, like, the research that goes into finding a perfect match and all of that stuff. So I was
course.
like, all right, let's see what we can do. And the first one was like a 12-hour live stream, and it was just all of the Geekscape shows. And we just set a goal to get halfway there. We said, let's make $1,000. If we can hit $1,000, we're halfway to matching somebody. And we succeeded in our goal. So I said, let's do it again. Let's double it. Let's fully match somebody. So last year we did it, and when we ended the evening, we were at like 1,400, and then before the year's end, we hit the 2,000. And I was like, cool, we did it again. We hit the goal, and that year we added music in as like an extra piece of it.
Of course.
And then this year I said, let's go 24 hours and let's shoot for the stars. Like, let's not expect that we'll hit the 4,000, but let's go for it. And we ended the evening with over $2,000, which is awesome, which means that we've been growing in our donations for that day. We had live music from Wheatus. We had so much cool content. So some of my favorite things beyond, like, we kicked off the live. Well, the first 9 hours was just retro stuff. I edited together a video of all the highlights of the first 2 years and had that run from midnight until 9 a.m. But then we kicked it off at 9 a.m. We did a very quick intro, talked about what the charity was. And then one of the podcasts on the network, $2 late fee, had Scotty Schwartz and Zach Ward of The Christmas Story. And that was our kickoff.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that fucking part. Shit.
Yeah, so they did like a
That's
nice
fucking awesome.
That's on the YouTube channel now officially. I just posted
Okay,
that
Geekscape,
today.
everybody out there. Geekscape Network on YouTube. That's GEEKSCAPE.
Yep.
And
Geekscape
that's amazing.
TV
Yes, Zach Ward on.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude, I'm the biggest Titus fan ever. I fucking love that series so much. Zach Ward, everything he did was fucking incredible.
He's so
Like,
good at it.
wow.
And
yeah.
So they had a nice interview with them, and then there was this girl from Canada who I found on TikTok.
Okay.
And she reminded me of a friend who had recently passed away. She just had the same guitar playing style, same singing style. And I became obsessed with her videos. She had this one video that went kind of viral where she does a thing called songs that shouldn't be played on mandolin. And she did Your Love by Outfield. And it just was amazing. And she's got this very like indie country singing style. She goes by the name Adina Z. Adina V. ADINA, and then the letter V. And I hit her up. I found her email address and was like, hey, I'm doing this charity event. I love your music. I love the stuff that you do on TikTok. And she put together this beautiful 15-minute acoustic set in her bedroom with like a Tom Petty cover and a Bruce Springsteen cover and a couple originals. And when I tell you that, like, throughout those 24 hours, the level of like geeky snark that would show up in the comments was ever existent. Like, that was part of the fun, was like, you were having fun, you were goofing around throughout the entire duration of her 15-minute performance. It was just people being like, this is the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen. This is so beautiful. These songs are amazing. Like, she stole the show.
Yeah.
And then, we had Wheatus. We did the One Hit Thunder trivia game, which was a ton of fun. We did a Charlie Brown Christmas script reading. The guys from 91 Donkey Lane did a round of Poof the Magical Game Show, which is their improv fantasy game show that they do. We had a drag show in the middle of it. My friend Biddy B put on a 15-minute Christmas drag show. So we were just, whatever we could do to present. I mean, literally in 2 weeks, I'm going to be meeting up with my friend who runs Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we're going to plan year 4. So it's an official tradition. It's going to happen every year. We just keep trying to make it bigger and better. I've got people who I want to reach out to. Again, I mean, I sent you in the private chat who's coming to the Weird Algorithm podcast. And if you think I'm not going to try to find a way to get them involved in the charity live stream if we hit it off, then you don't know me at all.
There you go.
Because I am all about, the first time you and I ever sat and talked, it was about Muppets. Our true love is Muppets. My signature on Facebook, since the day I got Facebook in 2004, is a Jim Henson quote, which is my only wish is to leave this world a better place than when I got here. And I really try to live by that. And
Mhm.
I really believe that, like, if people want to do good and they want to help, and like, you might not be able to get someone of that caliber to say pop on for an hour live stream and do a segment, but they might film a bumper just saying like,
Of
hey,
course.
you're watching the Geekscape fourth annual holiday live stream spectacular, and like share that on their socials and say, hey, go and donate to this cause. And like, that goes a long way. Like, those
Absolutely.
little things mean a lot to, especially to the kids who need these big brothers in their lives and big sisters. And I don't know, I I feel like I'm very blessed because I created a bunch of podcasts that have these really nice minor followings in these different niche fields. Um, but if I'm not taking whatever like tiny little platform I can build, be it like One Hit Thunder or Horror Movie Night or Christmas 365, if I'm not taking those platforms and then trying to use them to like make the world a better place, whether it's through doing these charity events or just like constantly not being afraid to talk about mental health and
Yeah, you were saying that before.
depression, and it's just so important to me. It's so important to me.
Yeah, and we had a really nice chat before we went live, actually, where even I was talking about just fuck. As a cancer survivor, I can honestly say, like, the last 4 months have been almost the worst 4 months of my life, and it's weird when you comparison to the big thing that you say later. You're like, oh my god, that thing must have been worse, but it's like it all depends on the matter of perspective, because when you're sick with something, you're like, well, this is what it is, and this is what I will do in order to try to get over it. The last 4 months have been completely like I've had no legs,
Yeah.
and I haven't been able to put my feet on the ground, and every day was completely unsure, and that insecurity and that inability to really even process what the hell was happening to me at that moment, that is what made it the worst. Because when you know you're somewhere, even if you're in a ditch and you're digging the biggest hole ever, well, here's the shovel, here's the hole, I know I'm digging today, let's do it. The fact that I didn't even know if I was digging that day or I was supposed to be building a plane, if that makes any kind of sense, just, every day something else would happen. I'm just like, well, I'm supposed to be digging this hole, but I should also be building a tent, and I should also be teaching this donkey how to sing this song. Like,
Yeah.
that is the most, when you don't know what the hell is happening in your life. That was the craziest thing. So
No,
anyway,
I've said
yeah.
before, like, I would rather be sad than
Mm,
feel numb. And like,
there we go.
and I feel like that's a lot of what I go through. Like, we're in the prime time for Matt's favorite seasonal depression visitor to just like
I'm so
pop in
sorry
on a
about that,
regular
man.
basis. Hey, you know what? At this point, it's like a comforting visit. It's like an old friend
Yeah.
dropping by, but it's just like
Mm.
an old friend who overstays his welcome. You know what I mean?
I'm
So
that
like,
fucking friend. I don't know when to leave, and
yeah,
every time I leave, I'm just like, "Fuck! I stayed there too long." Now they think
yeah.
I'm lame.
That's my
Yeah.
seasonal depression. Like, when he
Okay.
pops in the first day,
Mm.
you wake up and you're just like, oh, this is how it's going to be today. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it's like week 2, and you're like, all right, buddy, you
Ah.
need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
But
but the amazing thing about you, Matt, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
no, it's fine.
The thing that I admire you so much about is that you've been so honest about mental health and what your limitations are, what strickens you, what everything is the fact that you're still producing all these podcasts and you're still able to work amongst the pain, and that is really such an incredible factor about your work ethic, is that despite the fact that this is happening to you, you still produce no matter what.
Yeah. Well, did you watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
No, but I hear it's fucking amazing.
It's very
Yeah.
good. And
Yeah.
in the most recent season, Lenny Bruce is a character in the show,
Mm, mm,
and Maisel and Lenny Bruce have a
yeah.
very like amicable relationship as far as like their careers are. She's trying to be a comic, he's a
Of
comic,
course.
and she at a certain point in the most recent season, she's really fucking up her career
Okay.
because she's got a plan. And she's like, no, I've got to follow the plan. I've got to follow the plan. And Lenny Bruce yells at her and says, don't plan, just work. And that sentiment like spoke to my soul.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
he's right. Like every time that I'm getting depressed or
Hmm.
freaked out or I'm having imposter syndrome about the stuff that I do, it's never had anything to do with the work that I've produced.
Yeah.
It's always about it not fitting into the plan that I have made out on how this is going to work. Because I'm sure most of the people watching have no clue who I am. Hello, I'm Matt Kelly. Nice to meet you. In August,
They're lucky to know you, Matt. They're lucky to know you.
In August of 2021, I bought a house and then immediately quit my very well-paying full-time job to try my best at being a full-time podcaster / producer. And being a full-time podcaster / producer also means that I have like 14 part-time jobs to help pay the bills while I'm like trying to make all these other things work. And there is this idea of like, you can be making a thing and it's very well liked, it's very well received. Like the amount of positivity that gets showered on One Hit Thunder and Horror Movie Night and Christmas 365 and Weird Algorithm, like there is this constant barrage of praise, right? And that's super exciting. But at the end of the day, praise doesn't pay my mortgage.
I gotcha.
and like when I get in my head, it's like I'm doing all of this work and I'm still having to walk dogs in the snow 3 days a week to like hopefully have enough money to like pay for this bill and pay for this thing. And like when is this hard work and this praise going to roll over into what I need it to be so that this is more sustainable?
Gotcha.
And it's that realization that like just keep fucking working. Like, and I think I said this on you and I were talking after I wrote a pretty lengthy status about this on Facebook, but I said like at the end of the day, the only thing I can do is keep creating stuff that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Be as kind to people, make sure that I'm always entering every conversation with an open mind to people's ideas and feelings and thoughts, and just hope that one day the right person connects with it. And that could be, that could be that someone who's at the end of their rope feels rejuvenated to keep on pushing because of something that I said. But the other side could literally be someone going, why isn't this podcast a TV show? Why aren't we talking more about this podcast? The amount of people's lives that have been changed by like in the podcasting sphere. I think about this all the time. A show like Gilmore Guys, a show like My Favorite Murder.
Love that title.
Like
these fucking amazing.
Yeah, like these podcasts that literally became a full-time career for the people who did it, and all it took was the right person finding their show and writing an article about it on a website. You know what I mean? Like it was like crack.com like did an article about like the craziest murder stories that we've learned from My Favorite Murder, and overnight that show went from like two girls just recording a podcast in their house for fun to like a literal enterprise that involves like multiple tours and like a staff of people, like from one website writing one article about them. And like you just kind of I just think that like one day someone's gonna write an article that's like, why are we all sleeping on Weird Algorithm, or like why are we all sleeping on One Hit Thunder? And it's like I don't think that these shows are slept on. I think that we have a very amazing loyal fan base, but I also think that it's like, no, these shows have the thing that and this is going to sound weird coming from me, but I'm hoping that you can back me up on this.
Of course.
I feel like if there was a specific thing with the Matt Kelly brand of podcasting, it's like every show that I create, it feels like it's this very niche topic. Like this is about horror movies, this is about one hit wonders. Like it fits into these very small buckets. And I think that people get intimidated by where it's like, oh, I don't like horror movies, or I don't like this, that, or the other thing. But I think it's all a ruse, because it's always that those, whatever the theme is that week, whatever song we're talking about or movie we're talking about is just the light to the wick of this insane conversation that can go in any place and can be about anything, but it stems from like what was the start of the conversation. The start of the
Well,
conversation.
that happened with Christmas 365 this season
Yeah.
so far. Like
100%.
you guys were supposed to talk about this, but you ended up talking about all this. And I got to tell you, Matt, as a fan of your stuff, even though we're buddies, I don't know why people are scared to say they're fans of something, or they're too cool for school about it. I legit am a Matt Kelly fan, and I really like the fact that you and your co-host Dylan of Christmas 365, goddamn people, subscribe to this podcast if you want your life to be infinitely better, and if you want to smile even bigger, or if you Grinch style, if you want your heart to grow 4 sizes too big, subscribe to Christmas 365, because what you and Dylan do is pure magic. And I really like the fact that you were going to talk about Clerks the cartoon, but you ended up going on this encompassing journey of Kevin Smith's career, and when you feel that he kind of fell off the creative sense, and how you're more Scott Mosher people, and Scott Mosher kind of helped reel him in. And I'm like, I'm the biggest Kevin Smith fan. I think I think I'm the biggest Kevin Smith fan I know, and I have a Fat Man jersey right over there. And I went to Jalen Silent Bob's Secret Stash just to get it. But at the same time, I'm like, I completely am agreeing and disagreeing with everything you're saying, because, but here's the thing about chemistry: is when you find your perfect co-host, you guys can do that kind of stuff, and it all works. And that's the thing I love about Christmas 365 and Dylan. When Dylan is angry about something, it is magic. You know what I mean? Like when he screams, "Fuck you!" It's awesome. Awesome.
The funniest thing is that, like, I don't understand how he gets so angry on a show that is literally 99% of the time just us celebrating shit that we like.
I know, but it's wonderful. But that's the talent of Dylan. That's why Dylan's important for podcasting. Because even if Dylan's saying something I fundamentally disagree with, I fucking dig Dylan.
Yeah, he's
and that's an art.
Great. Dylan is one of those people. So here's the secret.
There's two types of trolls. There's two types of trolls, Matt. There's the ones that live under bridges that have fucking bats, and there's the adorable ones that have fucking like jewels in their stomach that you want to hug. You know, I mean, and trolling is an art, and Dylan knows how to skate both of them. It's incredible.
So
yeah.
So the way that podcast came together is very similar to Weird Algorithm, actually. Both of them were the same inspiration point. And this OC podcast. I love the Gilmore Guys podcast. I think it is the greatest podcast that has ever been made. Kevin Porter deserves every ounce of like success that has been bestowed upon him ever since he started this podcast. And the concept of the Gilmore Guys podcast was, let's, as two comedians, very sincerely analyze something that is so wholesome and sweet, and try to be as funny but fair. Like it's not a show about punching down. We want to really analyze all of the ins and outs of this show in the most genuine, fair way that we can, and the comedy will come out of how much these two guys absolutely fucking love this show. And I thought it was such a beautiful thing. And I was listening to the show for the first time, and I was watching Gilmore Girls for the first time along with the show. So I'd watch an episode, listen to an episode.
I have never seen a fucking episode, honestly, but
this is a great way to watch it.
Yeah.
A great way to watch it is to use Gilmore Guys as a companion, because they are so good at like giving a very fair balance. Like, here's all the stuff that doesn't work. Here's the stuff where the characters don't make sense. But then also like shower praise on like, this scene is beautifully acted. This is like wonderfully shot. Like, but in doing that, I was like, what's my thing? Like, what is the thing that I love that I could talk about that seems so wholesome and stupid, but I could be funny about? And I was driving home from my brother's wedding, listening to an episode of the Gilmore Guys, trying to think of what my thing was. And then all of a sudden I was like, Christmas. I love Christmas so much. There are other people out there who love Christmas. And then I'm like, who could host this And then I remembered meeting Dylan at a horror convention and getting into a deep conversation about Christmas. And like Dylan and I literally only saw each other once a year at a horror convention. That was it. Like we barely knew each other.
We still believed it. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
But I
Yeah.
texted him and was like, hey man, I have an idea for a show. And I think that you're the person to co-host it. And that's been almost every podcast that I have a co-host on. It has been a whim. Like it has been a complete and utter whim. Horror movie night. Scott was just a guy I met on Reddit on the Reddit horror page. And I clicked with him and I was like, we should have a podcast.
Yeah.
Christmas 365 was a dude I met at a horror convention and thought this guy's got something. And like now he's one of my best friends. The One Hit Thunder show, like I knew Chris through Punchline and we had talked a couple times, but literally I remember shooting him a text and was like, hey man, I don't know if you remember me. like that was how the text message started. But I have a podcast I think you should host. And like we got on a phone call and I pitched it to him and he's like, yeah, come up to Pittsburgh and let's record a couple episodes. And I drove 4 hours to Pittsburgh on a weekend and we recorded the first 6 episodes of the podcast. And now we're in episode 151 or 52 and it's just been like going strong. We're up for a Signal Award for Best Music Podcast of the Year and it's like this is insane. Like this is all of these shows. The Weird Algorithm was like I knew Matt Milligan because he had been a guest on One Hit Thunder and I knew he liked Weird Al and I pitched him on this idea and now he's another person that's like I text all the time and they're a friend now. Like I just I think that there are you give me a lot of praise and I appreciate that as
of course I do.
But I think that sometimes I never thought of myself as a producer until about 2 years ago. And then I really thought about like what a producer is at its core. And it's like a person who can find the right people for the right idea.
Job.
You know what I mean?
And the right job. And
the
that
right
can,
job. And that's where it started to become what it is. And, I'm producing this brand new show. It's only 3 episodes deep right now called Alyssa Explains It All. And it's a sex and life podcast hosted by Alyssa Lube, who was a contestant on The Circle, the Netflix show The Circle. And same deal with Alyssa. She was a guest on another podcast that I produced. And when I was listening to that episode, I'm like, there's something that this girl has a personality. This girl has a personality that can be a podcast. And she was a assistant to a sex coach. So I was like, what can we do with this? And we had like 3 or 4 different phone calls and we came up with like what her podcast could be. And at the time she wanted it to strictly be her talking to different people in the sex industry about about health and positive sex stuff and like kind of trying to destigmatize a lot of that world. And we were making a good show. But I had a friend, and the episode is out right now, Ashley V. Robinson. She's a fellow Canadian for you up there, Ryan. I know all of you know each other. It's a tiny little country.
Me and the people in BC, we just send each other carrier pigeons at all times.
But I just think that Ashley's like one of the funniest, most creative, interesting people. She moved out to LA. She started acting. She met her husband at a comic book shop. They host a massive podcast called Geek History Lesson.
So jealous. Every time someone says I host a massive podcast, I'm like so jealous.
They really do. They have this big podcast. It's like one of the top like geek and comic culture podcasts called Geek History Lesson. Her and her husband make a bunch of amazing graphic novels and comic books together. And she's just funny as hell. And I was like, you're going to want to talk to Ashley. I know you don't know her. Trust me on this. Yeah. And she was like, really but she's not what the show is. Like the show is about this thing. And I said, trust me, just trust me. So those two, I hit record and I think I knew that both of them liked reality television. So I got them talking about Love is Blind and then I hit record and I jumped off the call and just let them go crazy for an hour. And I literally got a text message from Alyssa. The episode came out on Tuesday. So yesterday. The episode came out yesterday and Alyssa texted me and she just said thank you for being a producer that pushes me to see what my show can actually be, because
There you
this
go.
episode is so good and I wouldn't have done it if you didn't let me see that. Like, my point was that the stuff that she wants to talk about is important, but if that's all that the show is, none of the audience that you want to get that message will find it, because it's going to
True.
be so tiny, it's going to be so niche, and it's going to be so inside baseball.
Mm.
But if you mix in these funny guests that can share their bad dating stories and their like weird relationship issues and these like universal things that anybody can connect to, of going on a bad date or being in a relationship that you shouldn't have been in. Like, these are universal things that all of us have to experience to become
Mm.
a functioning human. Like, those are the things that pull the regular people in, and then maybe they'll stick around for like the interview with like a fetish porn star talking about like what the stigma is in that, or like the sex therapist, or like the people fighting for like women's rights. Like,
Of course.
you need to, there needs to be like a baseline for people to enter in, to be ready for those deeper, heavier conversations that you want to have as well. Because if it's just all heavy conversation the whole time, like, you're
Well,
gonna lose people.
it's like a great show where
Yeah.
if it's a comedy, but then they'll throw in a really serious subject matter, that subject matter will resonate so hardcore with everybody because they've already gotten to know these characters, fall in love with these
Yeah.
characters, and when they're faced with an ailment, you're in the ailment with them. And I find that's the trouble of a lot of TV shows, is that they're so focused on, hey, let's make sure these characters have issues, but you don't know who the fuck they are yet.
No.
So
and-
like, oh my god, this person, they're going through hell, right? Yeah, that's who this character is. This character is a subject of their grievance, but at the same time, if you had fallen in love with them for 10 episodes, no matter what they do and no matter what transition they're going with themselves, you are so in it with them if you allowed them to be a character first before their opposition.
Well,
And,
even
yeah.
let's talk about two sitcoms that are very
Mm.
similar in a lot of ways, MASH and Scrubs, which I think are two
Shit.
like MASH and Scrubs are these
Mm.
two amazing sitcoms, because they both MASH set out to show the true horrors of war and what
Mm.
happens in a war, and Scrubs set out to be the most medically accurate TV show possible. And the reason why both of those shows succeed in everything that they wanted to say was because they were
Yeah.
funny while they were doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if every episode of Scrubs was just patients dying and there was no levity to it,
Mhm.
like, it would just fall on deaf ears. It would just be a bummer show that no one wants to watch. But because you get these weird, goofy, hilarious episodes, and then like maybe every 7 or 8 episodes in, you get just beaten over the head with some real life shit that like
Yeah,
doctors
yeah.
and nurses have to deal with in a hospital. It hits you in a way that it maybe doesn't hit as strong on a show like House or ER or Grey's Anatomy,
Because
because
it's all dramatic. Yeah.
yeah, it's very impressive how I legitimately cry more watching comedies than I cry watching dramas, because
good
the
point.
comedy has a way of lulling me into a false sense of security. It's the same reason why I think comedy is so important in an effective horror movie. Like, something like Scream works so well because you're laughing and then it
Mhm.
gets you. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's that comfort, and there is a fine science. I think that that's the reason why we're finding that some of the best horror movies of the last 10 years have all been directed by comedians. You know,
That's
you've got
true.
Jordan
Yeah,
Peele, you've
sure.
got like David Gordon Green, you've got these
Mhm.
people that are like, they know how to formulate a punchline. They know how to do a setup and a payoff. And then
Yeah.
they just apply that into horror. And then they still use those comedy chops to make you feel so safe. Like, this is so loose and this is fun. And then they really horrifically take you off your guard. And then you're rattled the rest of the fucking movie because of it.
Good point. And yeah, you know, I'm trying to think of shows that fundamentally moved me. And it's funny, like Big Bang Theory to all true geeks is no flag waver to what True Geeks represent. It's almost a caricature of, hey, all nerds are these unapproachable, like, I
It's
don't know.
almost
Hey,
insulting at times. I think that
yeah. Mhm.
I haven't watched that many episodes of Big Bang Theory,
There you
but
go. Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like I didn't want to watch it to begin with, but the more that
Mhm.
every family member was like, "You love it, they're just like you," and I'm
I
like,
know
"Oh
it's almost
no."
insulting in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
"Is that how you see me?" Like
Yeah.
when you look at me, you're like, "He's just like Sheldon." It's
Yeah.
like that is not it's not a compliment.
No, but there's this beautiful moment, and I remember that. You know what? We're talking about Christmas 365, everybody. Once again, subscribe to this podcast. Matt and Dylan, a wonderful host. It will fill you with joy. One of my favorite Christmas experiences ever, with the exception of tonight. Tonight was a very special night. I'm living in a new place. It's been a hard 4 months, but we had friends, we had family over tonight. It made the house have a soul, a pulse. It was incredible. I'll never forget tonight. And the fact that we're talking about this, I feel like I was visited by six spirits that turned me out of Scrooge into something else, and it's a truly magical moment right now. So that being aside, one of my favorite Christmases ever. I was in with my family. They had rented one, and it was this beautiful place in Rawdon. And one of my best friends who was here tonight was spending Christmas with us. And my ex girlfriend at the time, her family came. It was this whole thing. It was this beautiful experience. And I actually forgot where I was going with this because I just was reveling in the memories of it all. But I've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that. And sometimes, and Christmas memories, spirits, and everything, it means a lot to people. And we could say, what's our worst Christmas? What's our best Christmas? Best Christmas ever. Every year has the potential to be the best Christmas ever. And that's what I actually truly love about your show and the idea that you and Dylan are. You're not eternal optimists because you're human beings with opinions, but at the same time, you don't go out of your way like you will see on YouTube, where people will intentionally shit on something because monetization wise will do better.
Yeah.
Let's face it, it's just like everything wrong with the Grinch in 5 minutes. We'll probably get a few thousand views.
Yeah, and
But
we actively stay away. We're like, hey, neither one of us likes Jim Carrey's The Grinch, so we're just never going to do an episode
I
on
don't
it.
fucking like it either, to be honest.
But
It's
it's
hard
like
to watch. Yeah.
we just were like, that's not what our show is about. Like, it's feeling really weird right now
Yeah.
because we're recording for the month of January and into February. Every episode is about new content that came out this year, so we're just
Cool.
going into it blind.
And I'm so curious to hear. I'm so curious to hear about things because everyone out there, by the way, I love the movie Let It Snow, but between High School Slumber Party Brian and you on 365, you told me Let It Snow rules, and I've only saw it a month ago.
Yeah,
But I'm like, fuck, they're so goddamn right.
yeah.
The movie encompasses everything that's great about a teen movie and a Christmas movie at the same time. So thank you for that, but please continue.
Beautiful show, but like.
Yeah.
Or movie, but
Yeah.
This is like we've got like 3 or 4 episodes where we just like really didn't like what we had to watch, and like
Okay.
usually in most cases at least one of us likes the thing because
Mhm.
it's the way it usually is like Dylan picks a thing, I pick a thing, and then we also pay attention to like what's happening in society or what anniversaries are coming up. Like I think we're finally going to do Beavis and Butthead Do Christmas in March because March is going to be the 30-year anniversary of Beavis and Butthead. So like, we try to find stuff like that to keep things going because, sometimes by the time it's like April and May, I really don't want to be talking about Christmas stuff that badly. So we have to find ways to make it exciting and fun for us. But like, I really don't go into any podcast, even Horror Movie Night, which kind of got this attitude of being known as the show where it's like, oh, those are the guys that shit on horror movies. And it's like, no, we don't. Like, we really don't. We did in our first like 50 episodes because, we were edgy guys in our late 20s. But like,
of course.
I don't know. I'm sure I could be a millionaire by now
Mhm.
if I took the work ethic and energy that I have and just put it towards shitting on things.
Yeah.
but
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 that's
that's like
true.
not
It's
who I
it's
am.
it's it's what works. It's what works, but it's not good for the algorithm of the fucking universe. It
No.
really isn't.
And I'd rather be true to me. Like it's kind of not that it's
Mm,
on this same level, right? But like I was having a conversation with someone the other day where it's like it is so much like to wake up in the morning,
mhm,
and make the decision to be kind and do the right thing is
mhm.
work. Like
It
it's
is.
it's work and it's thankless work. Like there are so many people out there who have found amazing ways to scam people for thousands and millions of dollars. And like you could
That's a good
very
point.
easily wake up in the morning and just decide to do that and you'd be set for life. But you have to live with yourself every single morning when you wake up knowing that about yourself.
Well, it's
And
the
I
Spider-Man. It's the Spider-Man thing. With
yeah,
great power comes great responsibility, and Spider-Man's life sucks because he does the right thing. But at
yeah.
the same time, it's an admirable quality that I would rather have.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like, all right, maybe I have to climb this hill a lot longer because I'm
Mhm.
sticking to this moral decision that it's like I don't want to create content about how shitty everything is.
Gotcha.
When I first got involved with Geekscape, because Geekscape is not something I created. It was created by my friend Jonathan London. It started
Mhm.
as his solo podcast, and then it was a news site for a little bit, and I was writing for the news site. And at the time, the slogan of the news site was "It's okay to like things," because
Oh, wow.
so much of the internet's perspective was just like shit on it. And now, like
And big yellow writing and thumbnails.
exactly. So like now the
Yeah.
official motto of Geekscape, and we sell shirts that say it is "Don't hate, create," where it's like the
Mhm.
energy that you're putting into like making some video about how shitty some movie was, like just make a better fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like sit down and do it better and like and be motivated by that. Be like, hey, I'm going to the so I've never made a movie. I am the first
Mhm.
person to admit this. I don't know if I'll ever make a movie. When I was in high school, that's all I wanted to do. I don't feel that passion anymore. I found a passion for talking and being on podcasts and being on mics and creating stuff. But the first the idea, if I could only make one movie idea of mine, the one that I'm the most excited about was kind of made in response to someone else's thing. I was in a writers group and my one of my friends had written the script and it wasn't working. It wasn't a good script. And when we were giving out our notes, I like told him why it wasn't working and I pitched him on what he could do to fix it. And he was like, "Yeah, but that's not what I want this movie to be." But then I got so in love with the idea that I had pitched to him that I started writing that script instead. And it's the one that like if you were to say you could only make one movie, I'd be like, I want to make this one. Which I will say the idea because at this point, if I'm not going to be able to make it, I want someone to make it. Which was it was called Necrocomicon, and the idea was it was about a horror convention where someone has the Necronomicon there and they think that it's a movie prop, and it turns out to be the real thing. And they raise a bunch of demons, and everyone thinks they're cosplayers. And it's up to a bunch of washed up 80s action stars and horror fans to fight these demons. And it was just this wacky, goofy comedy idea that I had. And I mean, I have the first like 30 pages written and I'm proud of it. And you know, maybe one day someone will be like, hey, finish it. But until then, I'm going to keep working on my like 20,000 podcasts.
There you go, man. It's and that's the thing too. It's just like something I realized about myself in the last few rocky months is that yesterday broadcasted with our buddy from High School Slumber Party. But in the last few weeks, there was never an incentive to get the microphones set up, get the camera set up, and just do this. And I forgot how relieving all this is.
Yeah.
How as a creative or whatever, just as soon as you get it done, you procrastination destroys creativity. And after it was set up and after just talking to him yesterday, even today, I messaged you and I'm just like, let's broadcast tonight. But 2 days ago, I'd have been like, well, I can't broadcast with Matt. I got to do this and this and this and just create this mountain out of a molehill. And God, everybody out there right now, if you're thinking of creating a podcast, two things. Number one, it'll make you feel better, especially when you put yourself out there creatively. But two, if you're insecure about this, Matt has a great company called We Know Podcasting. And Matt, tell everybody about this, because if they're insecure about the process of coming into podcasting, you have a great relatable person such as yourself that comes in with no ego, no condescension, and really make your customers feel like not only is podcasting approachable, but it's fun and there's no shame in the process. Or if they make a mistake or they go about the wrong way, you're a true great guide to this process. Tell everybody out there about We Know Podcasting.
So We Know Podcasting was created by Chris and myself of One Hit Thunder. Between the two of us, we have almost at this point 30 years of experience podcasting. We both started our first podcast in 2005. And
holy shit, really?
Yeah. My first podcast was like,
that's a few years after 9/11, dude. That's crazy.
It wasn't very good. So Horror Movie Night was my 19th podcast. I did all these shitty podcasts. I would get I do 5 episodes, and then the imposter syndrome would take over, and I'd be like, oh man, this is bad. And then I would cancel it. And then I'd feel that bug of oh no, this is something I want to do. And then I'd start a new show. So the way I always said was We know podcasting is we failed plenty of times, so you don't have to. We can sit down with you.
I like that. We failed plenty of times, so you don't have to. I feel that way. Me and my old band are going to start a podcast called "How to Not Make It in a Band."
Yeah,
and just tell all the touring stories of this is what not to do to make sure you're successful.
My until they found out that someone had already gotten to the name, my friend Katie was really considering naming her podcast "Don't Worry, No One's Listening Anyway." And I was like, it's such a good, I love a good self-deprecating joke like that. But
of course,
we just were we'll do consultations with you if you I've got this idea, but I'm trying to unlock it. I'll hop on a phone call. I don't care. I'll talk to you for 3 hours until we find where the seed of your concept is and work with it. But we also offer editing services. I also have my own just personal LLC for if you're looking for a podcast producer, someone to take a brunt of the work off of your shoulders. The girl from the Circle's job is to sit down in the microphone and talk. That's it. I handle the scheduling. I handle the recording. I handle the editing. That's
wonderful.
And that's the stuff that I love doing. And I love being part of that idea. And I love having after the interview conversations and being hey, this was a really good episode. This wasn't my favorite episode, but it was still good. But we're probably going to have to cut these things to make it tighter. Because as I'm listening to them record, I'm also mentally editing a little bit going, I don't think this works. I don't think this works. Okay.
So they're paying you to be essentially the superpower producer you are, really, because that experience that you're bringing to a beginner's podcast is, you can't really put a price on that in a sense. You are, because you need to, we all need to eat. But at the same time, if I was a beginning podcast and I hired your company, that kind of foresight is essential, because they are benefiting off of all the years you put into it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like hiring somebody and you're like, oh my God, they charge so much per hour. It's yeah, but you're paying per hour based on their 15 years of experience. Yeah. And so I truly think you offer a service that people should actually use.
And I try to be really transparent with everything. And for me, I feel I can't promise anybody that pay me $300 a month or pay me this much, whatever amount a month, and I guarantee that you're going to make that money back in ad revenue and you're going to have the biggest show in the world. I can't promise any of that. All I can promise is that I will make sure that you have a better chance of achieving that than you would if you didn't have me.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Because I'm still trying to crack the code on making the money. Podcasting here. I'm gonna talk about a thing that's kind of been getting in my crawl a little bit.
Sure.
I was thinking about this when the Spotify Wraps came out, right? And a lot of my musician friends were rightfully kind of like, hey, just a reminder, like while you're sharing your Spotify rap stuff, remember how poorly Spotify pays their musicians. And that got
Mhm.
me thinking that like Spotify is the number one spot that people listen to podcasts, and they don't pay us shit. They don't pay like I'm not saying like they don't pay us shit, like they pay us like a percentage of they don't we get paid $0 for being
Mhm.
the thing that brings so many people to Spotify. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like the number our movie night generates, the numbers that One Hit Thunder generates, as far as I can tell, all we're doing in Spotify is generating revenue that Spotify is funneling into whatever their giant contracts are with shows like Joe Rogan. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like you have to be signed to Spotify specific exclusive deal to get paid. And it does have me wondering like when is that gonna when is like that gonna bubble over? When is
Mhm.
there gonna be a point where like a bunch of podcasters kind of unionize and say like we are killing ourselves
Killing.
providing free content that like
Mhm.
Apple Podcasts wouldn't fucking exist if we were making fucking podcasts.
Yeah.
Like Spotify is like surviving on this, Stitcher, like all of these companies. If we want to make money, we either have to track it down ourselves, like
Mhm.
we have to like find our own sponsorships, and most places don't even want to work with you unless you're doing like something like 10,000 downloads an episode, which is so hard to get to.
Oh my
Or
god, yeah. Yeah.
or you have to pay like $500 a month for a program like Megaphone that will like insert these ads that are based on like where people are listening,
Mhm.
and you get maybe like 2 cents a stream for that
That
money.
that that makes sense because some podcasts I download, I get a bunch of French advertisements because I'm
Yeah,
in Montreal, and I'm like,
I
"Why
bet
are
they're
you
all.
doing this?" Yeah,
I bet
yeah,
any
exactly.
Geekscape show does it
Yeah.
because we paid for it. We paid that money. We had to figure out a way to
Okay.
pay our podcasters, and that was the only option we had. But it doesn't like it's been really striking me more and more how insane that is. That like
Yeah.
this is a format that has been. We still haven't seen the top of it. Like
Uh-huh.
it is still going to continue to grow and grow
Mhm.
and grow and be more popular, and it's quickly becoming like America's favorite entertainment pastime is podcasts. And unless you're one of this giant like WTF with Mark Maron serial level podcasts,
You're
like
famous before your podcast famous thing,
yes,
and
like
then you do the live shows, and that brings in more revenue with the merch than the podcast ever can, but you had to be famous before.
yeah. I
And
mean, I'm
yeah.
not even saying like look, I'm not even saying that this is like one of those things where I should be paid $1 billion for what I do. I'm just
No.
saying like I would kill just for the half of a cent per stream that like the bands are complaining about at this point.
Yeah, I'm
Because it would at least say, "Hey, what you're making is valuable." Like like
let's bring up that a little bit with the kind of well, just even shit and with Napster and everything. It's just I used to think that music and bands when I was a kid, just bands were fucking legendary gods on clouds. Didn't matter if they're a local band or a band playing the stadium. It didn't matter. All musicians were untouchable fucking gods amongst earth. And their CDs were these passports to paradise that you needed to pay for. And I remember when Napster happened and you were able to download things, and all of a sudden you download an entire album, and instead of the process of me buying a CD I kind of liked, but fuck you, it cost $20. I'm going to listen to this thing 100 fucking times. Best song to worst song, front to back. I would absorb every single song just to justify the purchase. And when I downloaded something like some band's first 3 albums, I'm like, it's kind of bad. Switch, 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 move on. Never listen to again. Switch,
yeah.
switch, switch. Just based on that experience, the experience I just described before, that is just that was a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've made we've made entertainment disposable.
disposable. Yeah.
And that's I mean, maybe that's I don't know. Like, I'm not an expert on this
Mm.
stuff. I don't know what to talk. I am
Yeah,
no one who should be standing on a platform talking about this stuff theoretically.
yeah.
But I know that like a quote that I heard that I really believe, and I think it applies to a lot of other stuff, is someone said binging a TV show has only ever benefited a mediocre TV show. And their point
Mm.
being that like a really great show,
Mhm.
you will wait every single week to watch an episode of because you
And
can't
you
wait
will
for
hate yourself if you can't fucking see it. Yeah.
Yes. But a
Hmm.
mediocre show, I have watched shows that I have cared so little about, but Netflix
Hmm.
dropped it all on one day and I had nothing else going on. So it was just on the TV and the whole time being like, ugh. But like the shows that I paced myself, like with Wednesday, I was like, I'm gonna watch one episode a night
I've
on
only seen 2
Wednesday.
episodes, so
Yeah.
just don't say too much about the
No,
later
but I
episodes.
mean, but
Yeah.
I felt like I was rewarding myself even by
Mm.
just making that an 8-day experience instead of an 8-hour experience.
Well, there you go. That's the reason why Melissa, my darling, and I have only seen 2 episodes. It's just we're like, we are under severe mental distress right now, and this is a Tim Burton direct went Adams Family show. We're obsessed with the Adams Family. Why are we going to watch it now based on the fact that every part of our body is pre to feel, the darker side of, the spiritual experience right now, just based on life? Why are we going to taint this possible enjoyable viewing experience because we're just worried that the internet is going to ruin a spoiler? Why don't we just watch it when we feel better? So we watched the first 2 episodes and we're like, all right, that was great, but let's watch the rest when we have less to do.
Yeah.
So in January, yeah, we're gonna fucking rock that. But like the binging thing you're talking about, it's just like it's the first day, binge it all. And especially, I live in the geek world hardcore, and the only reason why I watch anything on the first day is so the internet and unnameable fucking networks, not gonna shit on anybody, just telling you the end of the fucking Mandalorian season 2 at noon on the Friday it came out. What the fuck, guys?
Yeah.
Why would you do that to your casual viewer who has a 9-to-5 job who can't possibly watch that episode until later that night or at least the next day? Like, why would you do that?
It's wild, and it's this idea that, and it drives me nuts, but it's this idea that like one of the downsides to doing as many podcasts about as many different topics as I do is this feeling that I have to be prepared for every conversation. And like that is like this weird benefit to me of like, you know what? I still haven't seen Wakanda Forever. And that's okay. Like if someone spoils it, I have opened myself up to that being the case. It's been over a month now and I still haven't seen the damn movie, and I want to see the damn movie. But it's just like I do a lot. Like going to a movie theater, sitting down for 3 hours plus like hour commute between there and back, and like there's just a lot of factors where it's like, do I have
commute, Matt?
Well, like let's say like it's 20-minute drive there. You sit through a bunch of trailers, you drive back, you maybe stop and get food on the way.
Okay. Oh, sorry. There and back. I thought you meant it took you an hour to get to a theater.
No. I'm not in the middle of nowhere. But like, so grand total for that movie, I'm probably looking at like 4 to 4.5 hours where I'm not working. And it's like, can I justify that right now? Or do I just wait for it to eventually drop on Disney Plus? And like, yes, do I risk that it's spoiled for me? Do I risk that I'm not getting that theatrical experience? Like, yeah, I am, but like that's the risk I have to take. But then something like when the Weird Al movie dropped, I felt like I had to watch it that day because I don't do a comic book podcast, so I can take my fucking time with Wakanda. But when the new Hellraiser movie dropped, when the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre dropped, when the new Michael Myers, the new Halloween Ends, like all of these things that dropped, the Weird Al biopic, like there are listeners who are expecting me to have insight on this, and I can't put it to the side like I can with like the other geeky properties. But like
Do you
part of me
resent?
just
Do you
do
resent
everything.
that though? Do you resent that?
I do.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather just I mean it was fun to watch Weird before everybody was losing their mind about it.
Hmm.
Like I mean the people who had gotten to see the advanced screeners were already raving.
Yeah.
But it was like I got home at like noon and I literally
Hmm.
went downstairs and watched it. I was like, all right,
Oh man, I'm
like let's
sorry.
just let's watch it right away. Like this is like the first thing I got to do today because and even then it's like all my opinion really matters on the internet at this point because I don't want to spoil anything is like, hey, watched Hellraiser, it was good. Like I'm
Hmm.
not going to go deeper into it because I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, but I know that there are people who are like, hey, I wonder what Matt Kelly's like. I get text messages all the fucking time and like
Matt,
messages
that's
on
really cool though. That's really cool that
no, it
anybody
really
gives
is.
a shit about anything you think.
No,
Just
for sure,
let's
for
also
sure.
remember that.
But it is like you get those
Yeah.
text messages was like, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on blank. And I feel bad when I have to write back to them and be like, hey, like I think it's probably gonna be good, but it might be weeks before I get
Yeah.
around to watching it. And that's a lot of that's with friends too. Like I feel so bad. I have my one of my absolute best friends, one of the sweetest human beings I've ever known. It's my friend Lauren. And she is always recommending me shows that I do want to watch. But then
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, but usually I have to watch something for Christmas 365, something for Before My Time, something for horror,
Okay.
two things for horror movie night,
Of course.
listening to an entire album for Weird Algorithm, watch 2 episodes of The OC, and do a bunch of research on a one hit wonder every single week. And like, so it's like, I'm sorry, I don't have time to sit and watch this show that you found on Apple TV that you think I'm gonna love, even though I know that you're
Yeah.
right. So like, she got me into I told her the secret to this is like
Yeah.
when I have a free Saturday and I'm hanging out at her house with her and her husband, I'm like,
Mm.
you literally just, if you think I'm really going to like a show, you're going to have to make me watch the first episode or two and get me hooked. And then it will become a priority. But if you're leaving me, if you're leaving me to my own device to pick up that show and start it, it'll be months. And she successfully got me to watch Only Murders in the Building that way. She successfully got me to watch.
I love Mel and I are obsessed with Only Murders
So
in the
good.
Building.
It's
But
so
let me tell you, nobody said, hey, you better fucking watch this or else. And I find that's a problem with us enthusiastic people who love things. You're kind of overhyping things and you're distilling the ability to love something so simultaneously the way we fell in love with something.
Yeah.
Because if something was just kind of there and you just found it, like sorry, and so sorry, Matt, you're on a roll. I just need to say this right now. There's this movie called Christmas Bloody Christmas. I don't think it's your and Dylan's taste, but because I know that you don't like, well, completely just, you know,
I just don't
the
like nihilism.
miserable Christmas experience. You know, there needs
Yeah.
to be a little bit of hope, which I think you'll really like Violent Night in the sense that
I think it's
based
going to
on
be
the
in October for us.
based on the concept, based on the concept, based on the title, you would think it would be the sleazy midnight movie shitorama, kind of like Santa's killing people, who cares? But the sentimentality, I think you and Dylan will fall in love with because it does exist in that. Though the sentimentality you felt in Elf and Home Alone, like the true family feeling, does exist in this movie that should be silly, and I think that's why you'll like it. Watch it whenever the fuck you want,
Well,
and
Dylan's already
don't.
seen it. Dylan's
Yeah.
already gone on the record that he's
Yeah.
not sure if Violent Night or Spirited is the best new
Mhm.
Christmas film of 2022.
Spirited was wonderful. Yeah,
I haven't seen Violent Night, so I can just categorically
Yeah.
say Spirited is the best new.
yeah. There you go. There you go. But I'm saying that given, I completely understand where you're coming from, and when people tell me, "Holy shit, Game of Thrones, Walking Dead." I only saw Walking Dead. I saw the first few seasons when they put out their 7th. I've
Mhm.
never seen it. I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones ever. Haven't seen House of the Dragon. Haven't seen nothing. And I think the overhyping was the problem with that because they're like, as a geek, you must watch this, and I'm just like,
But you know what? It's fun
yeah.
because you do hit this. You hit this point where so I always talk about so Napoleon Dynamite. I remember seeing Napoleon Dynamite in a completely empty theater the day it came out, and I thought it was the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. And it was like me and my 2 friends just laughing our asses off in the theater.
Yeah.
So much so that we told a bunch of other people, yo, you got to come with us. We're going to show you Napoleon Dynamite. We go back. I
Yeah.
saw it 3 times in theaters. Every time the theater got increasingly more packed. And then it was like this
Mhm.
cultural phenomenon to a
Yeah.
point that I started to hate Napoleon Dynamite. Because it was like everywhere I went, people were just quoting Napoleon Dynamite, and it was this.
That's what happened with AFI. I love the band AFI, but the second everybody loved AFI, I'm like, hey, fuck you. I like their old stuff. It's what happens. But anyway, please continue.
Here's my point:
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
now no one gives a shit about Napoleon Dynamite. And the
Mm.
one day I like put it on out of the blue, and it was like watching it for the first time again. Like
Yeah.
it's like things like that. Like there will come a time where no one gives a shit about Game of Thrones anymore. And then
Yeah.
you just like casually stumble into it, and
No,
all
totally
of that
watching
like
it.
nonstop. Because I'm experiencing that right now with I'm watching Gravity Falls for the very first time
Okay.
right now. And I remember when that came out, it was like this unbelievable universal praise of like, oh my
Mhm.
god, if you love cartoons and horror and like this is the greatest show ever. And I missed the opportunity. And then like the more that
Mhm.
I would see like memes online about it, the more I was kind of like, I don't think this is for me. But
Yeah.
now it's like before I go to bed, I try to watch 1 or 2 episodes. it's like, oh, I'm finding like a real comfort in
Yeah.
this show. And that's one that Lauren, like when I went over her house, was like, I'm going to make you watch the first 2 episodes. And that's sometimes how it has to be done. And
I think
also, shout out to Nostalgia Cousin Eddie.
Yeah.
Loving that. I'm glad.
Fuck yeah. Everybody subscribe to Christmas 365. I loved your Garfield episode. Garfield Christmas episode.
Where
And I'm
2 grown men are crying in the middle
Yeah.
of the podcast.
Oh my god, Melissa knows that speech the grandma gives front to back when she watches it. She knows every line of every second. And it's fucking fascinating.
It's one of the most powerful speeches ever written, and it's in like this. I think we talk about it in that episode where it's like
Yeah.
the show is the episode is such a run of the mills average 80s cartoon Christmas special, and then it just comes out of nowhere with this like beautiful, powerful scene. Like amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And what's incredible is that you talk very favorably about Garfield and Charlie Brown, but there's these 2 specials, monumental specials that are based on comic book strips. And without Charlie Brown, I mean, people can say they love Charlie Brown or they hate Charlie Brown, but without Charlie Brown, none of this happens.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the first, besides Rankin and Bass Christmas episodes, that was the first time they really took a chance on like, well, here's a comic strip. Let's make a fucking special about it.
Yeah.
And let's cast real kids in it and everything. Like Charlie Brown changed everything. So if someone likes it or not, it's still a pivotal, important part of history. It's like you can't like punk rock and say you hate the Ramones. It's the same thing. Like without that band that just decided, hey, downstrumming's awesome. Let's just do that.
Well, it's
You need to pay tribute to
people take shit on like, oh, the Beatles weren't that good. It's like, who the fuck are you? Like, you can not like the music of the Beatles, but to completely act like them and the Beach Boys didn't create what is like modern music.
Yeah.
it's
and without the 2 of each other, the Beach Boys got better because of the Beatles, and the Beatles got better because of the fucking the Beach Boys. It's insane. It's like, oh yeah, the Beatles are overrated, whatever. It's just like, man, shut the fuck up. Because the Beatles from 63 to 69 did more than any band could do in 20 years in like 7 years. It's fucking insane.
Name me another band who in 7 years of being a band has written as many iconic, eternally lasting pop songs. Like, it's insane. The output that they had in such a short period of time, and that like most of it is good. I'm not going to pretend that there's not bad Beatles songs, because trust me, there are bad Beatles songs. But like the wide majority of them are good to great. And like for how quick of a turnaround time they were just producing music, like that's unbelievable. Like
for every 6 months to come out a new album is nuts. And then to say yourselves, we're not playing live anymore, we're just going to make albums
so we can have more time to work on these albums. Like oh my god. Yeah. Oh, that's something that has literally made me angry since I was like 13. Because I'd be like, look, you don't have to like the Beatles. I'm not telling you to like the band. What I'm telling you is that you cannot say that they suck. Like,
Yeah, exactly. You cannot say they suck. And something about Christmas. I'm realizing now. Sorry, it's been a long night. I've had a wonderful evening with friends and family, and there was beer involved, and so my brain isn't as sharp as it usually is. But I got to say about Christmas Blake Christmas, we're talking about hype versus, hype destroying your ability to just process something with, going into something, not even seeing a trailer or whatever. My friend Ryan, who's married to a wonderful friend named Ashley, he posted, "Hey, by the way, he hadn't even seen it yet. He's like, I see there's a new movie on Shudder that's called Christmas Blake Christmas. Looks pretty cool. It's got a fucking robot Santa Claus that's attacking people. Has a real 80s aesthetic. That's cool." And just based on that and the fact I want to impress him, I like pop it on. It's like 11:45, and I just put it on Shudder. Once again, no audience, nobody telling me, "Bro, you gotta fucking see this," or "Bro, this sucks." I just watch it for what it is, and I see for what it is, and I see I see the world it's trying to portray, and it's not trying to be this, not trying to be this. This is what it wants to be, and I fell in love.
yeah.
And I'm like, I fucking really like this. And the next day, I talk to friends, and they're like, "I've heard it sucks," and I'm just like, well, it's a shame that you've heard it sucks, and that's preventing you from the same experience I had of, I don't give a fuck. It's 11:45. What else am I going to do? Shutter's on. Let's check this out. And I saw it exactly for what it is. It's not a Christmas classic. It's not filled with Christmas music. It's not trying to make you feel sentimental. This is Terminator 1 if Terminator was fucking Santa Claus, a robot Santa Claus, and it's full of dark synthwave music, and it's really fucking interesting, and I would prefer that over a forgettable Christmas film that was phoned in. Clearly it was made with a lot of love, and it might not be for everybody, but at this exact moment, at this exact time, it was a song I wanted to hear.
Yeah,
If that makes any sense.
I know. I agree with
Yeah.
you wholeheartedly in
Mm.
that sense. And like,
Mm.
one of the things that when Geekscape was still just a news site, something that like really put us on the map was an article that Jonathan had written about Sucker Punch.
Okay.
And it wasn't so much saying like, "Hey, Sucker Punch is this masterpiece of a movie," because it definitely isn't. Like, no
Fuck
one
no.
is arguing that it's a good movie, that it's this masterpiece. But his argument was like, for 3 days, all I read on the internet was how this was the end all be all worst movie that has ever been made, and how Zack Snyder is a piece of shit director and he should never be given a chance to make any other movie again, and blah 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 blah. And he's like, and then I went and saw this movie, and it was just a good, fun popcorn movie, and like I just met it where it was, which was like being a dumb action movie. And like, why do we care so much about dogpiling on these things? Like, that's what happens. It's like enough people, even when like Wednesday came out, now everybody loves Wednesday. But I remember, man, the first like 12 hours of Wednesday coming out, it was just negative posts about Wednesday that just
Mm.
all of a sudden the rest of the internet decided, no, those first people who disliked it are wrong. But like,
Mm.
I was very ready for the dog pile. We've talked about on Christmas 365. I think the internet fucking dogpiled on the Munsters movie this year in a way that did not make
Mm.
sense to me. I think they dogpiled on Halloween Ends. And I'm not sitting here saying that any of these movies are like Oscar worthy contenders that deserve like this deep reevaluation, but I'm like, the fucking Monsters movie was a fine enough children's movie, which was what it set out to fucking be. Like,
We came to the same conclusion at the same time, Matt. In
Yeah.
fact, I came to this conclusion before reading your post about it. I'm like, this is a fucking Fox Kids movie from 1997.
yeah,
Like, this is what it is. And or a pizza commercial from 1993,
Yeah.
because it has the same energy and the same like old school monsters before monsters were all sexy and fuckable. They were like, just universal monsters living in the 90s with big bright blue paint, and the energy was turned up and everything. And the first time I watched the Monsters, wanting it to be something else, I'm like, oh man, this sucks. This sucks. This sucks. This is good. This is good. I like this. I like this actually. Wait a second. I like this. And the next day, instead of watching something else, I turned it on again. I'm like, fuck, this is good. It's actually really good. It's actually really good. 2
Right.
days later, I play it on again. Matt, no movie in 2022 have I watched more than once than The Munsters. I watched The Munsters 4 times.
My thing with the
Yeah.
Munsters was like, again, I thought it was a
Mm.
fine movie. Like, it's not
Mm.
going to be in my top 10 list or anything like that. I mean, it might be. I
No.
didn't see that many movies this year, but like, my whole thing was, is it really any worse than any Hotel Transylvania sequel or any of the animated Addams Family movies that I think are worse than it? That I think talk
I
down to
agree.
kids way more than like. I'm like, this. I thought that this was fun. It is what it is. Could it be like 20, 30 minutes shorter? Absolutely.
Yeah.
but like it was. I didn't hate
Did
it.
you need to have them singing "I Got You, Babe" for 4 minutes? No.
No. There's
No.
a lot of things. So it'll be a while until this episode comes out. But we just recorded our episode for A Christmas Story Christmas,
Okay.
and it was a movie that we both liked the first watch, and then the more we thought about, or Dylan rewatched it, the less that we enjoyed it. But
Okay.
like our overall thought was like, it's not that we think it's a bad movie. We think it's a good movie. It's a movie that was
Mhm.
better than our anticipation was, and I
Okay.
stand by that. But it was like one of those movies where the more you think about it, the more you're
Mhm.
like, God, if they would just tweak and change a few things, this movie would be perfect. And
Sorry, I know your episode's coming out, but as a person who saw A Christmas Story Christmas, and Melissa, who had never even seen A Christmas Story, watched it with me and kind of enjoyed Christmas Story Christmas. What are these things that you're talking about tweaking? Because I'm just
so
curious in the meantime, if you
so
don't mind dropping some.
yeah, so the big thing that we landed on was that the
Mm.
dad shouldn't have died that year.
I think the actor is dead though, right?
No, no,
That's
no,
why
no,
they
no,
did
no.
that.
The
Yeah.
dad should be dead. But our point is like, we're
Oh,
like,
it shouldn't
a
have
lot
just
of
died. Okay.
yeah, a lot of the logic falls apart if he just died, right?
Mhm.
Why is Randy not there? Like, I don't
Mm.
like he's not coming to his dad's funeral. Like
Yeah.
that's confusing. Why is it only brought up how sad they are when it's convenient to the plot, and then the rest of the time they're just like goofing around and having a jolly
Mm.
old time? I'm like, if you literally just made it where like they used to go and visit the town every year for Christmas, but then the old man died and
Mhm.
Ralphie just couldn't bring himself to go,
Mm.
but like his mom isn't doing well this year, and when she would normally come and visit them, they have to go visit, and it's more of a film about like facing that fear
Mm.
of loss that you've been running away from, and you can literally keep everything else exactly the same. Like, you don't have to change anything, but it just fixes those weird little moments where you're like, why is Randy not here?
Mhm.
Like, why is the mom so goofy?
Okay with
and-
it. Okay
yeah,
with
you
it.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's like, because that's the stuff that kind of pulled me out the more I thought about it. When I was watching it in the moment, I was like, I'm loving this. And then
Yeah.
the more I thought about it, I'm like, oh, a lot of this doesn't actually work for me. But if it wasn't like the dad died 48 hours ago, it would, like, think about that for a second. Think about the movie that you watched and think about the fact that 48 hours before they showed up, he just found out his dad died. None of what he's doing makes any logical sense whatsoever.
Who played the dad in the original? Is it the same guy who played Clark's dad in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, or am I mixing my old man up?
You might be mixing your old men up, but let's just say
Okay.
that it is. But yeah, and that's like stuff where it's like
Yeah.
that's the power of filmmaking. At the same time, on Before My Time, we did an episode on Casablanca, and we were talking about how if you think about it too much, there's a ton of plot holes in Casablanca, but the director essentially was just like, we're going to keep the movie moving before people notice them. And it's
Okay.
like, you can do that in filmmaking. You know what I mean?
course.
Like, you can have a plot hole and you can be like, hey, I know that this doesn't make sense, but if we just keep the movie moving, no one's going to think about it too much.
Yeah.
Especially back then when like you had to pay money every single time you wanted to watch the movie because it wasn't like there wasn't any home release. So like, people are just there. They paid money. They're there for a good time. They're not going to overthink what they're seeing on the screen. That's a very
They might be
modern-
drunk.
Yeah.
They might be drunk. Yeah.
That's a very like in our lifetime thing where you watch something over and over again and try to find the logic flaws in it. but yeah, that was just something that I was like, man. And then as we in the episode, like we talk about a lot, but as we talked about it, we're like, man, if they had just, it's such a tiny tweak, and you get to keep all of the good things
Hmm.
that come out of that movie, but
Yeah.
you get past this, like what we both now see is like this huge elephant in the room that like no one is acting like the dad just died. Like no one is.
Except Ralphie. Except Ralphie.
Except for
Ralphie.
Ralphie,
But
only
Ralphie's
with
doing it in a
his
sense where he's needs to plan Christmas out, and without his old man, now he has to do it. But it's not like, oh my god, my dad's dead.
Yeah.
It's more like, oh my god, I need to be the event planner.
Yeah, I just, I mean, and obviously I am not a father, and I
Mhm.
really, as far as I know, but like, I if I got a phone call today that my
Mhm.
dad passed away, you would not, you talk about
There'd be
my
no this.
productivity,
Yeah.
there would be, every single show would be on hiatus for months.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I just couldn't do it. I wouldn't. I'd be at my parents' house for Christmas with
Mm.
my siblings, and my brother would come into town because he
Yeah.
would be there for his dad's funeral. Fucking Randy, but like it just
Yeah.
like it's stuff like that where you're just like, what is going? Like I just. I the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, I do not connect with any way that any of these characters are handling this information. In
We
the
got to remember though, it's the late 70s though, and the whole kind of like macho, don't show your feelings shit was still a real thing.
yeah,
And that suppression was still was a real thing. So not to say they're completely like living in the woods about everything, but at the same time, back then it wasn't cool to say I'm sad.
yeah,
So
no, for
yeah.
sure. I just that is like the one
Hmm.
thing where I'm like, man, that would make what I think is like a 3 to 3.5 out of 5-star movie a 4 to 4.5 star.
I
Movie.
gotcha.
Is that little, because it's and that's like the thing we keep stressing in the episode too, is we're like, we didn't dislike this movie. Like this isn't like this movie's terrible, don't watch it.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you've got something like Spirited that is just such a strong concept and a strong script, and like it has these twists that catch you off guard, but they still work, and it's very sentimental while being very funny, and like blending that comedy with the sincerity. Like, I don't know. I'm a oh no. Sorry. I'm a huge fan of Spirited. Like Spirited
Yeah.
floored me. And I feel like every year there's like one movie that's my standout. And the other thing with A Christmas Story Christmas is that I just genuinely think 8-Bit Christmas is a better
Yeah.
Christmas Story sequel. Like, in every
Well,
way.
I fundamentally agree with you, Matt. Everybody out there, if you have Crave in Canada, I strongly suggest you check out 8-Bit Christmas. It is a wonderful story about a kid trying to secure a Nintendo in the mid 80s when it first came out, and it's absolutely wonderful. And Steve Zahn, who plays the dad, is just wonderful as always. Neil Patrick Harris plays the adult telling the story about when he was a kid. So you have that Christmas story narrative period piece. It's absolutely fucking wonderful. And on the Geekscape network, your YouTube channel has actually interviewed the director, correct?
Yeah, and we have two on Christmas 365.
There you go.
We had 2 different interviews with him. He is a super chill guy. We interviewed on both Christmas 365 and Geekscape. We interviewed the author of the book that the
Nice.
movie is based on.
Mhm.
And then Geekscape had him on like 10 years ago to promote the book when the book originally came out.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so I mean, but it's a very, he talks about a lot on the Christmas 365 episode, but it's like it's very much a personal story. It's pulled from an over exaggeration of true story, but it is
Yeah.
like it's like 80% exactly my experience trying to get a Nintendo. Like,
That's incredible. That's incredible. Sometimes we get lost in the silver screen aspect of it. But I just a big shout out, and Matt, this is a really fun experience. Funny thing. My friend, this guy who I adore, I met him at the Fantasia Film Festival 8 years ago. And he came out with a movie called 52577, the
Oh,
true story,
yeah.
the almost true story about how he went to Hollywood as a teenager and saw Star Wars before anybody else did. Basically, he was the first person to ever see Star Wars who didn't work on it, and even the producer of Star Wars to this day calls him Fan One. And he made a movie about his life, and it's called 52577. And my instinct, as it was coming out finally on VOD and Blu-ray, is that, and the producer part of you that you say, I love bringing people together. I feel that too, because all of a sudden I realized Brian from High School Slumber Party needs to fucking talk to this person. And I
Yeah.
got so excited. I got more excited than when they announced a new Spider-Man movie. The idea that Brian and Patrick will podcast together. And I had the same feeling of, I got to fucking hook up Matt and Patrick. And then I look, of course, on your YouTube page. And of course, Geekscape being very dialed into everything already has had Patrick on.
Yeah,
Of course.
Jonathan and Patrick have become very good friends. I believe Patrick will be signing at the Geekscape booth at
There you go.
Comic-Con
There you go.
in July. But yeah, Patrick.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't even realize how much of a fan I was of Patrick until recently.
I know.
Because
Angus, man.
I mean, he's the no, but I was gonna say
Yeah.
Space Invaders. Space
Okay.
Invaders was my shit when I was a kid.
That's fucking awesome, man.
Like,
Have you messaged him and told him all this? Because he loves that shit.
yeah, I mean, Jonathan came to me and was like, "I'm interviewing the guy who did Angus and Space Invaders. Do you have any questions?" And I sent him an overwhelming amount of Space Invaders space questions.
See, that's how we became buddies, because Chris Fafalios, who, of course, everybody out there, if you want one of the best podcasts on the internet, we all have to agree, is Krista Makes a Podcast, where
Yeah,
where the singer of Less Than Jake, well, one of the co-singers, but one of the singers of Less Than Jake, breaks down songs by lyric and music with the people that wrote the songs. It's fucking incredible. Anyway, the producer and co-host of Krista Makes a Podcast, Chris Fafalios, tagged you in a post, because Chris is just the best dude ever. Tagged you in the fact that I was interviewing Kirk R. Thatcher, who directed Muppets on the Mansion and has had a 30+ year career with the Muppets. And you, dude, were the MVP of the comment section, asking the best fucking questions ever. and after that, adding you, and then that's how we became friends.
I mean,
and stuff.
you were the matchmaker for me and Brian too.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
Brian and I, we've only collaborated twice. I was on one episode of High School Slumber Party, and he was on a One Hit Thunder podcast. But
Which one? What was he on? I haven't heard that one.
what did he do for?
I'm such a fucking Brian fan
Oh,
too. Like,
he
Brian's
did,
my buddy.
He did the Rembrandt's "I'll Be There for You."
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
You
I
get
gotta
a
look
shout
this
out
up
in
right
that
now.
episode. We literally talk about how
You
all
guys
three of
don't.
us
You
are
guys don't
connected
realize
to
every
Brian.
time you guys say my name, it fills me with endless fucking happiness. Thank you so much for doing it.
But yeah, no, we're like all three of us are from the camp of Ryan Stick. We wouldn't know each other if not for that dude. So, but yeah, he picked the Rembrandt's "I'll Be There for You," and yeah, just and we talked about Friends and the sitcom and everything. But
That's so
him and I
cool.
message pretty regularly about random nonsense. Like, it's
Please
not like
involve me in this random nonsense, man. I love you
yeah,
guys.
it's so it'll be so random. It'll literally just be like some random teen flick drops, and him and I just both like shoot each other a message real quick, like, "Yo, you gonna see this shit?" But yeah, I'm constantly messaging him with like, I think so. I asked him if I could be on High School Slumber Party, and he's like, "Yeah." And then I literally sent him, Ryan. I listened. I made a list of every high school film I liked. Then I went through all of the episodes to delete all the ones that he had already covered. And then I sent him a list of 200 movie titles. And then I was like, the ones in bold are the ones I'm really serious about. And there was like 15 in bold. Like, I was like, like, dude, I can do, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. And and he brought me in. I did not anticipate that he was going to bring me in to do the Daria thing of all of the things I pitched to him. I didn't think Daria was going to be what he grabbed, but yeah, we did, and I was so proud of that episode, and that was
You
like
were.
right on the heels of the Daria video that I had made that like
Yeah,
is
yeah,
still
yeah.
doing amazing.
Smash hit.
I was so proud of that in retrospect, how popular that video is.
Yeah, but you were sincere. That's why.
I
You
don't know
weren't
how to
just
be
somebody
anything
being.
other than. Like,
Yeah, but you weren't just some guy saying Daria was a show once. I guess it was good, but here's everything that was wrong about Daria and how it should get canceled. It's problematic. Like you came with like this, literally saying this love letter to Daria, and it's infectious. Your enthusiasm is infectious, and that's why people subscribe to all 15 of your shows.
Well,
You know,
the other
yeah.
thing with that Daria video, and I think about this all the time, is like I scroll through there and like there are so many comments that are just like, please do more Daria content. And it's like,
Aw.
if I wanted to, like, it's like there's so many channels that it's like, I'm not going to call out any names,
Okay.
but there are at least 3 different channels that I can think of that for the last 3 years have somehow went from what their original content was to just being content about iCarly. and like, I don't give a shit about iCarly, but I like these YouTubers, so I'll watch all of their videos. But I was like, I don't ever want to be that guy. Like, I'm very excited that the Daria video is a success. And if I'm struck by inspiration to do more Daria-based content, like I have one idea that's kicking around in my head, but like I probably all the stuff that I complain about where it's like, oh, how can I monetize this? It's like if I sat down and put out a Daria video every month, like I'd be fine. But there's like it needs to be something I care about. Like a lot of people ask me to do like a top 10 episodes list. I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can sit down and I can make that list. But like the other one that I have a real struggle with, and I've only just started to figure out how I could do it, is like a lot of people, there's supposed to be this Daria spinoff called Jody that's coming out at some point that's just following Jody now in 2022. And I want to do an episode all about her character, but I'm also very aware that I'm a white man that has lived a life full of privilege. So who the fuck am I to do a deep dive on like the struggles of an African-American character in an all-white school that Daria was trying to depict? So I've been waiting for like how to do it because it shouldn't be me and it can't be me. I'd much rather
it could be you, but here's the thing, Matt. Go into the ether and find the co-host that it does represent, because just because you are who you are does not negate your opinion about the art form that was Daria. But at the same time, you can have the best of both worlds. Find that person that should, but because both of your opinions are just as valid. You know, especially if they're expressed, because let's say you find somebody who doesn't have any podcast talent that it was made for, but they don't have the communication skills to go onto the microphone. I mean, you can have the best of both worlds. It's not just because, oh, well, this checks all the boxes. It's, you know, I think you have a talent for finding people that need to be the voice of said subjects, and I'd say do it, but just don't put yourself out of there just because of a certain bunch of check marks. Like, you know, your opinions and your love of Daria and everything in that universe still is valid, but at the same time, I do agree. Find that other voice that it was supposed to be for. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think I found that person. I've been
cool,
but I haven't pitched the idea to them yet, but I know how I'd want to do it, which is like, I can sit there and I can do the research and break down who this character is, but I'd love to literally just go episode by episode of every episode that Jody is in and like track what's true about this character to this hypothetical second person on this project. So that's something that's in my brain that I do want to try to do before they have try to have it mostly figured out so that whenever they do have like a release date for Jody, we can like make that work. But
that's fascinating though that they're even making that show. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this one off because it's like at the end of January and I have done no research for it. Okay. But one of my like ultimate guilty pleasure shows is that 70s show, and that 90s show is like right around the corner. So I'd love to
Yeah.
do the same way that I did Daria and American Pie. I love to do like a love letter to that 70s show. But
Sure.
like for Daria and American Pie, I sat down and rewatched every episode of those things to really write down like how those feelings resonated and all the and I think that's the way I need to do those videos. And
Mhm.
there's just a lot of that 70s show. It's like 240 episodes, and I'm like, I don't know if I can watch
Matt,
240 episodes before
Matt,
the end of
do you
January.
want to know something horrifying?
What?
Horrifying. That show came out in 1997 or 8. Which one? You would know.
97, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, 97. It's based on 77. That is literally saying, let's make a sitcom about 2003
Yeah.
and make it feel like it's so fucking long ago that we could comedically change our set design to seem so different from our present stance that we could even call it that 2000s show.
Yeah.
Like, does 2003 feel long enough from right now, particularly to describe a sitcom about it based on its looks and everything?
Well, here's the thing. I've
Yeah.
talked about this with people, and
Mhm.
here's why that feels so fucking foreign to us.
Mhm.
I don't think so. Close your eyes and
Okay.
think of 1960, right?
Mhm,
Think of the
mhm.
60s. You have kind of
Yeah.
a distinct vision of the clothing. You have a distinct vision of that. Same with the 70s, same with the 80s, same with the 90s. I really think from 2000 on, there isn't that unique flair for anything. Nothing has like
No.
been such a leap and bound in fashion and lifestyle in such a dramatic way as it was in all those different decades. So that's why
Just
I
in
think
technology. Just in
yeah.
technology.
So
Yeah.
that's why I think when people are like, "Oh man, 20 years ago was 2003," it's because like you can't like I look at photos of myself in high school and I'm like, "Yeah, I'd still wear that." You know what I mean? Like in a way that my parents can't look at their high school photos and be like, I'd still dress in bell bottoms and like because it
Mhm.
looks so dated and ridiculous. But like, I don't know, like in 2003 when I was in high school, I was wearing t-shirts and hoodies and
Mhm.
jeans. You know what I mean? And like that's still what
We
I
didn't
wear.
have Flock of Seagulls haircuts. I think the only thing is maybe the emo cut is like
And
really
that
the
was
dated
still
part about the early
and
2000s
that's the thing.
maybe.
The stuff that we think
Yeah.
about though is still so niche. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like this, not in the way that like the 70s had this universal fashion and like
No.
90s had that grunge look or like the gangster rap look or like
Mhm.
there was like these 3 or 4 pockets. It was like people just dressed in their regular ass Abercrombie and Fitch clothes, or they were like the emo kids. But even the emo kids, it was like I always said
Mhm.
that I felt like Jason Segel in SLC Punk because I never was someone who dressed the punk role. I was the
Yeah.
dorky guy in glasses and a t-shirt.
Mhm.
Used sometimes even like a tie-dye shirt. Like it was just like whatever the fuck I felt like wearing because I didn't care about like having to dye my hair and get pierced up or anything like that. But like I just don't think I even see like Facebook people will do like their 15 years ago I posted this. I'm like, y'all, we all look the same. Like nothing has changed. But our
Yeah.
generation just lives so much healthier. Like
Yeah.
I got a huge compliment from my friend's mom the other day where she was like, I swear to God, you look younger every time I see you.
That's
and
good.
and I mean part of it's because I got no kids and no responsibilities. So like
That
does
does
wonders.
age you. Yeah.
But like I also just I think it's because like our generation in general, like a lot of us have grown up where it's like we've seen what fucking heroin and cocaine and all this shit does to people, and like we've seen what alcohol abuse looks like, and then you look at Gen Z. I think Gen Z is going to look like 17-year-olds into their 40s because they're like as long as they're not like really into the lean lifestyle of
Mhm.
mumblecore rap, they're like these like super on top of what their diet should be and on top of
Mhm.
their like just I
Well, there's
think,
more vegans than ever. There's more
yeah,
just
like,
the idea that your body is your temple, and as opposed to just a series of abuse, there's a series of I think they're just trying to for self-preservation. They're just
yeah.
kind of like, hey, our bodies are important. So is
Back when,
he. So is
back
the
when
so is
you
the
even said,
environment. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
1970s, you weren't allowed to cry if you were a guy. You had to be the
Hmm.
strong man. And now we're in a generation where it's like, I
Why
think that
aren't you
people,
crying? Like, what the
yeah,
fuck
like
is wrong with you?
we're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
look down,
Hmm.
and I'm about to say something that I'm sure like every crazy far to the left person will be like, see, that's the problem. But like we're
Hmm.
going to be very questionable about someone who can't own up to ever feeling sad or feeling
Hmm.
any of these emotions, because it's like,
Hmm.
no, that's not a good thing. That's not an admirable trait that you've never cried. Like
Hmm.
crying is a very important part of human emotions.
Hmm.
And like you need to be in touch with that stuff. You need to be, and I am painfully optimistic. I know that there
Hmm.
are people who see the doom and gloom in society, and I get that, right? Like things are not great. I'm not sure how things are in Canada, but certainly the news is showing you that that the United States has got some serious issues. But when I look at it across the board,
Hmm.
I see a lot of older people clinging to the past and to their own relevance. And I see a lot of young, forward thinking people who just want this world to be better for everybody.
Hmm.
And if we can just like I don't want to have this hurry up and wait attitude because I don't think that that's valuable. But I'm like, if we
Hmm.
can just keep it together, if we can just like not fuck up everything over the
Hmm.
next 30 to 40 years,
Yeah.
we're going to have a very understanding, kind, loving generation of people who are
Yeah.
like the elders
Hmm.
that are going to have such a better bar. And I'm sure that we're all going to look at what the next 2 or 3 generations of kids are doing and be like,
Yeah.
what back in my day? But still, like,
Hmm.
our back in my day is going to be like, back in my day, we ate impossible meat and we.
Hmm.
And we made sure that we knew everybody's pronouns and we were loving and
Hmm.
caring to everybody. Like, it's going to be such an optimistic thing across the board. And I'm not saying that every single person who's my age, your age, or younger feels this way, but I think the majority is a lot higher in those demographics than we are ever willing to give ourselves credit for.
I think that people have more in common than a lot of outlets, whether it's media or just groups. I heard a great thing about George Carlin said something amazing. He's like, I love every human being. When I look into their eyes, I see the possibilities of the universe. It's when they get into groups that they turn into pieces of shit sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of I don't like the idea that being a great human being has become the dick sizing contest it has become, because I think it takes the noble actions of said Spider-Man that says great power comes great responsibility, but when you do it to further your social barometer above other people, it takes the insincerity of your actions, the selflessness and insincerity of your actions. It just makes it seem like some people are doing it more to further their self worth, which takes away the ability. It takes away from what being kind is. Sorry, I've had a few drinks tonight, so
It's all good.
putting it out on Front Street. I find that being nice is something. I find that being truly nice is something that is undeniable in the human spirit and soul. Is that if it's an ice storm and there's lightning outside and someone has a flat tire and you stop them, and despite the fact that raccoons are eating your shoes, you will still help this person, is great, as opposed to I'm going to broadcast what a great person I am on Instagram, taking selfies of myself, changing a tire because it suits my needs that day and I need to feel self-validated by the nice things I'm doing. I've seen people that I thought were bastards blow me away by how wrong I was about them. And I think that we need to also acknowledge the shades of gray in the universe as opposed to I'm right, you're wrong. And I think that will truly bring people together.
Yeah,
Is that not forgetting about those shades?
I literally just the other day, Chris Fathers and I were texting about like how multi-layered people are and how like on the face value, you can see one thing of a person. And I started talking about Al Jolson. I was like, I just learned so much about Al Jolson recently. And like, to those of you who don't know, Al Jolson, the star of the first talkie film, The Jazz Singer, was literally known as the king of
talkie film. Sorry, what's a talkie film?
Oh yeah, no, talkie film is in the days of black and white silent films.
Okay, so the first,
the first time that people were talking in film. Yeah. He was in the first talkie. He was literally known as the king of blackface. Like he was doing minstrel shows. But also, a few fun things about this. As early as 1911, at the age of 25, he was noted on Broadway for constantly fighting discrimination in his performances. He helped produce the first all-black show to ever be produced on Broadway. He refused to perform in a movie until Cab Calloway was paid the same amount as him for the movie. He heard about a bunch of black musicians who were refused service at a restaurant for their race and tracked them down so he could take them out for a nice dinner, and said that he would punch anyone in the face who tried to refuse to serve them food while they were out together. Like this guy who became so infamously known for a thing that was demoralizing was also simultaneously one of the strongest allies in the 20s. And it's like the irony of that, the irony of how layered a person could be, where it's like at their core, they get it. They get that there is a painful inequality that's happening, and at the same time is still like benefiting from the negative stereotypes that allow him to go on stage and perform. And like that, you know, we are two sides of a coin. We are like, we are constantly walking this balance act. And I read somewhere that like in his mind, he thought he was being helpful even with doing the blackface stuff, because in his mind, like the way he explained it anyway was he was like, I had such a love of these songs and these jazz songs that no one was allowed to hear because they were performed by black performers. And I thought if this at least allows these songs to continue to live through, then so be it. And it's like, retrospectively, we can look at it and go, that was not the best way to do it, Al. but it's like, does that bad decision of becoming known as the king of blackface completely erase all of the positive things that he did for that community in being an ally at the same time? And I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't. I'm not saying like, oh, we should build statues in honor of Al Jolson now, but like it makes you think. It makes you think of this duality in every single person, that we are not just this one simple piece of a puzzle, but we are all multifaceted, multi-emotion, multi-motivational people, and that we have to, I refuse to believe that I cannot find one thing in common with another human being. They could be the person I hate more than anything, and I'm sure I could connect with them on at least one thing that we agree on.
There was a thing on the internet, I think it was called Blackout Friday or something, where just everyone, you know, changed their profiles to black pictures, just blank pictures, whatever.
Yeah.
And I know what I did that day. And everybody is like, look, I'm a Canadian. I'm a Canadian. Montreal is a very, very diverse city. And it's a melting pot, and every culture makes it as beautiful as it is. We are what makes Montreal incredible is the people in it. But I will say this, is that I spent that day just, you know, looking at the things that made me proud to be in the diversity I am. And one of those things was watching the movie Remember the Titans, in which during at a time, and it's based on a true story and based on a time when these people were just so angry that African American football players were joining the team, and they went to this football camp and they all became friends, but then they had to come back to the world where people are like, hey, fuck you, you're not supposed to be friends and stuff, and them showing the world that it's better to be friends than not. That's truly like what inspired me. Called my friend Marlon, who I've been friends with since I was like 10 years old. Just talked about his experiences, everything else, and it's just and that to me, it just like it's incredible how movies can just make you, they touch you on your core. And I remember just feeling to remember the time. Nothing in this world makes me more happy than when people who are supposed to be enemies become friends. That is my favorite fucking thing in the world,
Yeah.
because that is hope. That is the Christmas, not even the Christmas spirit as we're talking about Christmas tonight, but that's the hope of humanity. That's what's going to solve the
Well,
fucking world.
you've
Is
heard me
when
say this a
yeah.
million times on Christmas
Mhm.
5, but what I love about Christmas all comes down to the Christmas Carol. And it's this idea that at any moment
Mhm.
you can stop being the worst version of yourself and just
Love that.
decide to be the best version of yourself.
And the brilliant thing, everybody out there who hasn't seen Spirited yet, the reason why that movie works is I saw, after having a few drinks, I saw the first 25 minutes and I was just kind of like, it's okay, it's a musical or whatever. But then rewatched it 7:30 in the morning, just me watching the entire thing and truly realizing the complexity. Here's these spirits who have been doing this for hundreds of years, and they change people who are Scrooge type characters and try to make them good by the end of the night. They singularly pick individuals they think they can change, but then they find this Ryan Reynolds guy who is deemed unredeemable, and Will Ferrell needs to change this certain person unredeemable for reasons we're not going to get into because that's a spoiler, and it's a great reason to watch the movie. But the fact that his entire network wasn't going to go for this person because they pre-programmed themselves to be like, well, why would we bother? But
Yeah.
he had to. The We need to fucking go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's I mean, that is my favorite one so far. Again, I haven't seen Violent Night, but
Mm.
that movie moved me to tears on more than one occasion. Octavia Spencer's song in that movie is like an absolute masterpiece
Yeah.
of a song. Like it's man, we've been all over the place. I do have to wrap this up soon because it
I
is
know, me
almost
too. Me too.
midnight 30. So I need
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
but
But isn't it fucking great? Like, Matt, this is what we do. We always like start off, we're like, let's talk about fluffy shit, but then by the end of the broadcast, we're talking about like heavy shit. It's like whatever.
yeah,
But that's the fucking great thing. We've had some really fucking nice people commenting all night. Thank you so much, everybody. But the whole point of this broadcast is subscribe to Christmas 365, subscribe to the Geepscape Network on YouTube, and One Hit Thunder, wonderful fucking show, horror movie nights, fucking amazing. Matt, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much
I
for coming on.
love hanging out with you, Ryan. I wish you lived closer.
Where are you based out of? If
I'm
you
in
tell the
Philly.
internet,
I'm just hanging out in Philly, just
yeah,
outside of Philly, practically
yeah.
Delaware. I'm right where Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey meet for a group hug.
Yeah. Fucking man. That's fucking amazing. Your insights to things are awesome. Everything you talk about, you definitely do have a lot of love. I'm assuming there's a lot of episodes in 365 that you haven't touched upon yet. I have a few episodes I would like to recommend.
All right.
There is an episode of Justice League in which it's just Hawkgirl and Green Lantern go celebrate things the Hawkgirl way. Not Hot Girl, Hawk Girl, because she's from a planet that is a warrior planet, and Superman brings Martian Manhunter to his parents' house to celebrate Christmas, and he is a big fucking kid. It is so beautiful. And Flash is trying to find the Tickle Me Elmo of the year to for a bunch of orphans. It's so beautiful and it's so amazing. X-Men the animated series, they have an episode called A Very Morlock Christmas where the mutants that live in the sewer, like their younger person is dying and they need like a transplant, and Wolverine comes to help them. It's just, there are truly wonderful things. And despite, of course, Christmas is very religious based, but it's also, I think we part of the whole Christmas Carol, the ability to want to be a better person by the end of the night. I love the Christmas metamorph. I think that people coming together trying to be the best you can, and I find a lot of these specials and cartoons I'm talking about exuberate said thing. And it's I can't wait to hear you and Dylan talk about these two particular episodes, because I think it tugs on the heartstrings that that seems to be, as a avid listener, the part of Christmas that you both seem to latch on to the most.
Yeah. No, there is a lot more Christmas stuff for us to discuss. So I'm sure send me a message so I remember to write those down, because
Sure.
especially Justice League and X-Men, just as a reference point whenever the next Justice League and X-Men movie comes out, it's like perfect. Like that's like the thing we're trying to be smarter about, is like, okay, we've got all these people who are listening to us right now because it's December. Like, how do we convince them to stay tuned throughout the other like 10 months of the year that they don't want to talk about Christmas? And it's like, we promise we're going to talk about Christmas stuff that ties to like what you're about to go see in theaters or something. So that'll be good for us to mark down. But
Excellent.
just thank you again for always being so, you were such a kind person to me, Ryan, and I greatly appreciate your friendship.
I can't not be a kind person here, Matt. Come on. Like, have you met you?
I haven't.
Okay.
I've only seen myself in a mirror and think,
Matt, you're fucking delightful. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching this broadcast. Basically, do not deprive yourself of the Matt Kelly. He is his heavenly voice can be heard on so many podcasts in the Keepscape Network. But considering Christmas is in a few days, go on your podcast app right now, subscribe to Christmas Sooth 65, and scroll the fuck back. Whether it's new episodes, old episodes, you will find something that will titillate your Christmas spirit, and possibly even pour some gasoline on it, because by Christmas morning you'll be even more thrilled, just based on the fact you heard it in the first place, because Dylan and Matt are magical people. Have a good night, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and hopefully to see you soon. Bye, everybody. Push that ending button. Oh yeah.